1 year ago, I was trying to juggle way too many things at the same time. I wanted to be good in school, wanted to make progress in the gym, while learning kickboxing, learning to play the piano, and building my side hustle and staying consistent on those habits like reading, meditating, and journaling. And surprise, I just had way too many things on my plate. And I constantly felt guilty because no matter what I did, if I went to the gym or worked on my business, there was always something else to do, something else productive I should do right now. And just the thought of resting or being less hard on myself already felt like falling behind. If this sounds similar to you, this video might be exactly what you need right now. And even though resting felt really bad and somehow always wrong because I was feeling like I was being lazy, letting loose a bit more was the thing that ultimately brought me more peace. Because at the end of the day, the thing I was striving for was a sense of peace. And maybe that's also what you are striving for. At least with me, it was like I was constantly trying to improve, make progress in the gym, building my online business, making my first money online, meditating and doing all this stuff. But what was I doing it for? I was doing it for a sense of peace, a happiness that would come somewhere in the future when I just reached those goals. But does it work that way? No, it doesn't. And I already knew logically that reaching some goal won't really make me happy, that you need to find this sense of peace in the moment, but actually getting there, actually letting loose a bit, actually letting yourself rest, that was the hard part. That was what felt incredibly wrong, what felt like I was falling behind. But the thing was, before I was putting so many things on my plate and trying to do so many different things at the same time, before that, I was giving way too little fucks about life. I was wasting hours a day on my phone, I was smoking weed pretty much every day, and saw myself getting worse in school. And because that was a situation I didn't want to be in anymore, I changed. I took control over my life. I started doing all those things like reading self-help books, starting to meditate, starting to journal, deleting social media, and all the stuff people online tell you to do. But what that ultimately led me towards was me always trying to stay in control, always trying to be productive, and always trying to optimize everything in my life. And even though I think this situation was better than before, and also wasn't what I wanted for me. Like I said, I wanted this sense of peace, like probably every one of us wants. But not letting yourself rest and constantly trying to stay in control was the thing that robbed me that sense of peace, that constantly pulled me out of the moment and into overthinking and feeling guilty and so on. The problem was that by trying to act less impulsive, I also lost my intuition and lost my connection to myself a bit. And I think this habit of constantly trying to stay in control and constantly trying to do the next productive thing, I think that makes you less vulnerable. And of course, that's also often what we want. We want to protect ourselves. But if you think about it, that's also what robs you that sense of peace in your life and that sense of life being real, I would say. Because think about this. It's similar to constantly putting on a mask. Like when you're in a relationship to someone and you don't let yourself be vulnerable. You don't really show the other person who you are deep down. You don't show your true self. You constantly try to not be vulnerable in order to not get hurt. But what that ultimately does for you is that it prevents real connection. And I think it's similar to constantly trying to stay in control, not letting yourself rest and not trusting your intuition and not trusting yourself. I think that's similar because you also put on a mask, but not only for other people, but also for you. And now you can't connect to yourself, and with not connecting to yourself and not really acting out of intuition and out of who you are, essentially, you also can't connect to other people. And now you not only feel guilty, but also like you can't connect to anyone or relate to someone because the connection to yourself is also lost. The goal isn't to go back to the person you were before you got control over your life. That's not the goal. The goal is to trust your intuition and yourself again without acting impulsive. To try to get this balance. And the question now is just, what do you want out of life? Do you want this sense of peace? At least for me, I think that's what I wanted. and what I was trying to get by constantly trying to be in control. What do you value more? This inner sense of peace or some external success? And I also think you don't have to choose one or the other. At least for me, the goal isn't to only get one of them. The goal is to get a bit of both, the best of both worlds, to get this balance. Because don't you think there is a way to both make progress in the real world, to get some kind of external success, while also feeling inner peace and not feeling constantly like shit? If the goal is balance, two different people might need exactly the opposite advice. Like I said, when I was still smoking weed and constantly being on TikTok and social media and scrolling, I needed this David Goggins kind of advice, to push yourself a bit harder, to do a bit more, to tighten up a bit. But later on, I didn't need that advice anymore. I needed the advice to loosen up a bit more, to let my intuition in a bit more, to get this balance. If you want an extreme, okay, go for that. But I don't think that's what we truly want. At least it's not like that for me. I want this balance. And if you watched until this point of the video, I think you also try to find this balance. And I also think you are not in that situation anymore where you don't have any control over your life. If that's true for you, you don't need this David Goggins advice anymore. Maybe later on, maybe somewhere later on again. But right now, I think you need this advice of loosening up a bit. So I hope this video gave you some kind of insight and something new to think about. And then I wish you a nice day and bye.